During the Nationals arc in Kono Oto Tomare, Meiryou had one of the best performances in the series, as well as one of the most compelling storylines Amyuu has written. Meiryou has always been hailed as the second best high school Koto team, which is a blessing and a curse, since it still shows the absolute dominance in the high school Koto scene, but it also shows that they have never been able to take that #1 spot, even once. With the Nationals starting, Meiryou has another chance to break free from their second place curse and finally achieve their dream of becoming the #1 Koto team. With so many talented teams participating, it will be an extremely difficult task for Meiryou to come out on top as #1. Despite the difficulty, however, one man directed and brought out the absolute best of Meiryou's team in hopes that they will finally become champions. That man is no other than Kiryu Ousuke. In this video, I'll be analyzing Meiryou's path to performing at the Nationals and breaking down all the important scenes that led up to their perfect performance. I will also focus on Ousuke's character since he was a major contribution to the identity of this powerful Meiryou team. If you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the content and support my Patreon too for more videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. So how exactly did Ousuke and Meiryou reach the pinnacle of perfection? Let's talk about it. Nationals has been hyped up for a very long time, and the winner becomes the champion of high school Koto for the entire country. It is a very prestigious event and everyone with high ambitions is looking to win it. As stated earlier, Meiryou was a powerful team known for being second place, but they are still aiming for their first championship. Coming into Nationals, Meiryou was seeded to be the 7th performance of the first day. All other big contenders to win the championship are all coming after them, so this makes Meiryou the first major team to perform in the Nationals. This amount of pressure with everything at stake is hard to deal with for anybody, but Meiryou is a talented team with a lot of experience, so they have been in similar situations like this before. During the Kanto Music Festival, Meiryou was also the first team to perform, but instead of feeling pressure, they had a strong and confident mentality which led them to win the tournament. So coming into Nationals, being first wouldn't pressure Meiryou too hard as long as they stayed diligent in their practice and efforts. Chapter 116 signaled the start of Meiryou's performance. The chapter began with Ousuke reflecting on the performance of both Ichihei and Tokisei. He says, "The first time I heard of Ichihei's performance, I thought that their skills were overwhelming. It was as if I was being punched in the gut by its sheer pressure. It was a performance only possible because of how high their skill level was. And then I heard Tokisei's performance at the qualifiers. I shivered at the power of their sound. The ability to appeal to one's heart. It wasn't the power of just one individual. Theirs was a performance that could not be replicated. Meiryou as it is now stands no chance against either of them. First place would once again slip through our fingers, which is why I have to think of a way to compete against them. What kind of performance is Meiryou meant to aim for?" I absolutely love this monologue from Ousuke for many different reasons. The biggest one is that he doesn't look down on Tokisei at all, despite Meiryou having a stronger history than them. Many rivals in sports manga tend to make the mistake of thinking they can easily beat the main characters by assuming everything the main characters have achieved up till now was either a fluke or not worth taking seriously. This makes them get caught off guard and leaves the readers wondering what would have happened if they actually acknowledged the main character's strength and made a plan to counter them. Ousuke, however, avoids such a fatal mistake and is properly thinking about the future of his team. After witnessing just how incredible Tokisei's performance was in the qualifiers, Ousuke believed that Ichihei and Tokisei will be the biggest obstacles in winning the championship. He came to the conclusion that Meiryou is not capable of beating them currently and is trying to find an answer on how they can evolve in order to contend with such powerful teams. Acknowledging the strengths of your opponents and thinking critically about your strengths and weaknesses is an amazing trait to have, and is one that can guide you to achieve amazing success. Next time you see the Meiryou team, they are preparing to perform. They will perform a song called Capriccio, which seems like a very difficult piece that uses multiple instruments. We also learned that Ousuke is having a bet with one of the junior members of the club, Susumin, about if Meiryou is perfectly prepared for Nationals. After some more exchanges and inspirational words between the Meiryou team members, Chapter 116 ends with them starting their performance. Chapter 117 starts with the words, "a perfect performance," in a questioning tone. Ousuke follows up by saying, "Yeah, I've given it a lot of thought, and in order to stand a chance against Ichie and Tokisei, there really isn't anything else we can do." This line is heavy because it shows that Ousuke is holding Tokisei and Ichie to such a high pedestal that nothing else but absolute perfection will give them a chance of beating them to win nationals. Everyone was quite surprised Ousuke included Tokisei with Ichie, but Ousuke doubled down and says that their performance at the qualifiers might even be better than our own. He also doesn't rule out the possibility that another team they don't know about could appear and give a jaw-dropping performance that could win the entire competition. He says if they don't change, they will most likely miss out on first place again. As convincing as Ousuke sounds, the idea of perfection is very scary since it implies there is not a single flaw. Asano explains how it creates an immense amount of pressure and it could end up being counterproductive since people might not be able to perform at their best. These concerns are very valid, and it's one many teachers and advisors learn to avoid when trying to bring out the utmost potential in their students. Ousuke, however, responds and says, what if perfection was the bare minimum, or even the expected outcome? He further explains what he means with a small monologue. For example, say we included mental training into our practice schedule and found a way to curb the pressure and the anxiety. In this quest for perfection, where perfection isn't the goal, but the starting line. What if perfection wasn't something amazing? What if it wasn't out of the ordinary? Don't you think that would make us super strong? This monologue from Ousuke was amazing, and it is very significant in understanding Meiryou's evolution. The Oxford Dictionary defines perfection as the action or process of improving something until it's faultless or as faultless as possible. Many people see perfection as something that when it is reached, there's nothing after it. Perfection is seen as the absolute final goal or the final form of something. Following this logic, people capable of achieving perfection will be certified masters of their craft since all their training, talent, and skill they have developed will make it possible to have no faults in their craft. This is the common connotation associated with perfection, and as Asano pointed out earlier, it is immense pressure to put on a bunch of high school kids enjoying Koto. Ousuke in his monologue, however, pointed out not only the specific methods he will implement for the team to achieve perfection, but that he also plans to completely warp the common connotation and stereotypes associated with the idea of perfection. Training under Ousuke's unique perception of perfection and ingraining his beliefs into their mentality will make the Meiryou Koto Club fundamentally different from any other team. I find this idea truly revolutionary, and Ousuke thinking this deeply about the concept of perfection and implementing a strong game plan under his theories really impressed me and shows just how extraordinary of a character he is. We learn a bit more about Ousuke in the next scene when Yachan, their Koto coach, comes to talk to Ousuke. Yachan explained how Ousuke has never interfered with the club's training before and is curious about what the sudden change is about. Ousuke responds that he really wants to win this time, and the only way to do that is if everyone improves. He still believes Meiryou can get second place even after the senpais have graduated, but he ends off his monologue by saying, "I don't need any more second places. The only thing I want is first place." Yachan wonders if his motivation is about Asano, but Ousuke cuts him off and quickly says it's because he hates losing. He continues and says everyone in the club is like that, right? Ambitions run high, which is why I believe the bar for perfection fits us. Ever since Asano got bullied in school due to how other kids viewed their relationship, Ousuke took special care of how he's being perceived by others. This causes him to not be entirely true to his feelings and focus more on saying the right thing. It would be to no one's surprise if Asano was in fact the biggest motivation for Ousuke wanting to win this year, and I personally believe that is the case, despite him saying otherwise. I also don't think Ousuke was lying about his answers to Yachan, and it shows just how highly he values and regards his Meiryou team. Even with their third years gone, Ousuke has full faith that Meiryou could still dominate every other team but the national champion. Believing that everybody in the club is highly ambitious and willing to work hard to win a championship, he believes his team is a perfect fit for the bar of perfection. We then move on to the next scene. The Meiryou team chose a song they will perform, assigned important roles to their members, and began their rigorous training regimen. As mentioned earlier, Ousuke wants to incorporate mental training to curb the pressure of achieving perfection. Yachan starts teaching the club about improving their mentality as well as giving tips and tricks on how to alleviate pressure and anxiety. What he talks about are all things many people have heard of, but the main difference is that hardly anybody considers those teachings as part of their training. Meiryou plans on actively doing these mental improving exercises and seeing them as important contributors to their future success. Ousuke gives some advice on what exercises they should complete in order to improve their mentality. He says, "Hey, this is just a suggestion, but how about at the end of each day, we all do an individual debriefing? Things like our goals for the day and how we achieved them." Someone commented on the word debriefing, and Ousuke continues by saying, "Yes, nothing about regrets or failures or anything like that. A debriefing about everything you succeeded at. We're all a bit too serious, so even if the day was all around terrible, we can try to find at least one good thing. How about it?" Everyone seemed to love the idea, so he continued on. He said, "Okay, how about after each turn, we all shower that person with praise?" And once more, everyone was enthusiastic about the idea and is looking forward to these mentality improving exercises as they chase perfection. This scene was good, and it broke down the specifics of what exercises Meiryou will implement to improve their mentality. Again, it all feels like things we have heard somewhere before, but taking it seriously enough that you implement it as part of your daily training is not common, and it's something that separates Meiryou from the other teams. The next scene has Asano and Ousuke walking home. They are as friendly as ever, and Asano thanks Ousuke for pushing the club in such a great direction. She talks about how hard it was for her as president, but thanks to Ousuke, she has faith that they'll be able to achieve that coveted first place. As Asano kept talking about how she couldn't help much, Ousuke said, "Asa-chan, it's enough as long as you keep smiling like that. As long as you're smiling, I feel like everything will be okay, no matter what. As long as Asa-chan is smiling, the club and the whole world will be happy." Their relationship as always looks to be filled with smiles, laughter, and positive energy. It is as clear as day to see just how much Ousuke treasures Asano. As children, she saved them from a dark place, so she will always be an important existence and a huge motivational factor for Ousuke. The story continues and highlights just how much the already talented Meiryou has been improving. The coach compliments Ousuke's insight since the mental training, song choice, and the theme of perfection has been a great fit for the team, just as Ousuke said. We then shift the focus to Ko, one of the stronger members of the Meiryou team who recently got put in charge as the leader of the third Koto part. After some fooling around, Ousuke starts to show some genuine concern for how Ko is handling the pressure of her position. He says, "Besides, Ko-chan, you're the leader of a part for the first time, and since I propose aiming for perfection and the mental training, I imagine it's gotten harder to show weaknesses or fears, let alone speak up about them. But rest assured, you can complain and grumble as much as you like. Ko-chan, you're so reliable and strong that you never rely on me. It makes me want to cry." After Ousuke's words, Ko-chan then opens up to him and talks about how she's not confident in her breaks and pauses, which then leads to both Ousuke and her practicing it together. This scene was great because it shows that Ousuke has a strong sense of responsibility for adding this extra layer of pressure to his teammates. Even though Ko-chan was known for being reliable, he still had a one-on-one moment with her to make sure everything is going well. Assuming he's doing this for the other club members as well, it shows that Ousuke is a humongous factor behind Meiryou's improvement since he assists the team in more ways than just coming up with great ideas. The last part of the chapter focuses on Susumin. Ousuke picks up a phone that Susumin drops, and as he's giving the phone back, Susumin rudely snatches it away and attempts to leave. Ousuke snaps and asks Susumin to explain exactly why he hates him so much. Susumin says, "There was a guy, exactly like you in middle school. I was in the orchestra club. Frivolous, yet talented. He was the self-imposed mood maker of the club. I couldn't really deal with him, but I didn't really hate him either. But as time went on, he started fooling around with more and more girls in the club. And then word spread and the club started to get more and more chaotic because of it. Right before an important competition, the club was in shambles. The performance was a complete disaster. Those of us who remained, we practiced so hard, but it was all ruined by one person. Susumin released all his bottled up frustrations, but Ousuke tells him, but that person isn't me. It's up to you if you want to hate me because of that guy, but don't lump me together with him, okay? Susumin says angrily that you're the same, saying nonsense like this time will be number one or a perfect performance, and then going around flirting with a bunch of girls. If you want to run around chasing skirts, do it somewhere else. The rest of us take this club seriously. After screaming, Susumu calms down and softly says that, I don't want all of it to go to waste again. Susumu's outburst showed a new perspective on Ousuke's behavior. This is Ousuke's second year in the club, and he's been their star for a while now. The other club members are already aware of how Ousuke acts and who he is as a person, so they're very comfortable around him. But since Susumu is a new junior in the club, he'll be far warier of Ousuke than the average club member. Susumu's story about the guy from middle school also shows that people who possess similar traits as Ousuke are usually not as passionate as everyone else in the club about their competitions and performance as a team. Susumu believes that Ousuke is the type to prioritize flirting with women over practicing as a club with the goal of winning competition. So as someone who is truly passionate about giving his all towards his club, Susumu is worried that Ousuke would ruin it, and thus he lacks respect for him. But despite Susumu's worries, Ousuke separates himself from the others by simply stating, but that person isn't me. Many people with ulterior motives can exhibit traits like Ousuke, but that does not mean that Ousuke is just like those guys. It makes sense why a new member like Susumu would think that, but Ousuke himself has too strong of a motive and is too talented in bringing out the best in others to ruin it all by being a playboy. The scene continues with Ousuke getting flashbacks to his childhood with Asano. He remembers the warmness she gave him as she brought him to the world of Koto as a friend she could have fun with. Ousuke then says, there's no way I'll let it go to waste. Not me. He says one more time, I won't let it go to waste. He remembers Asano again and says, the only thing I wish for, the only thing I desire is a future where Asa-chan is smiling. The scene ends with the bet that Ousuke had with Susumu. He says, I'm willing to bet that there won't be a single problem until the main event. In other words, this conversation will be the first and last problem we have. From here on out, Meiryou will steadily complete every practice without a single issue between the students. We'll be in top condition and we will deliver the perfect performance. A powerful speech spoken by a man full of confidence and determination. He continues and says, in order to achieve that, I will control everything. Everybody's practice, their strengths and weaknesses, and their interpersonal relationships. I will not let a single thing slip through my fingers. I will crush every cause of uncertainty. All of them. As villainous and controlling as his methods sounded, Ousuke still showed his determination in making sure everything goes correctly, even outside the club room. This level of dedication once again proves why Ousuke is the star and the magician behind the beauty Meiryou shows as a team. He looks at factors beyond just the music and makes sure everything is moving in a direction that will benefit the club. He has always been a meticulous person, but this is to a level I didn't expect at all. I was very impressed with his dedication, and if the club does end up achieving a perfect performance, he will be the main reason why it was possible. After the backstory and the build-up for Meiryou's story was finished, chapter 117 ended with the start of their performance. After the first note was played with some intense pressure, Ousuke thinks to himself, come, let us show them our whimsical and free capriccio. The note at the end of the chapter follows up and says, perfection is now in the palm of their hands. With perfection being a strong theme of Meiryou's performance and Ousuke promising to deliver that high standard to the club on the national stage, chapter 118 dedicates itself to portraying Meiryou's perfect performance. Chapter 118 starts with explaining what their song Capriccio represents and symbolizes. It says, Capriccio, just as the name implies, exemplifies freedom. It changes drastically between its 3 chapters. The 17th stringer acts as its bass, maintaining the tempo, while the other kotos sing, dance, and play. The first chapter of Capriccio starts off with Meiryou giving a powerful performance and entrances the crowd. They comment that Meiryou's high-level technique is able to make the song sound powerful, sharp, and avoid being monotonous. Their performance is already said to be far more precise than last year, and even though their skill has established them as top-level talent, it is implied that they were still missing something. We shift back to Ousuke talking with Ya-chan in the classroom. It is implied that Ousuke says that their playstyle was way too clean to the point where it could be detrimental to their score. He says, yeah, you could call it too pretty. I think we should be careful about that in our quest to perfection. Humans are the type of creatures that consider things without flaws as a duel, and since the judges are human, there's a high chance our performance could be deemed as perfect but boring. So at the start of the second chapter, alongside the melody, will distort. I absolutely love that Ousuke factored in the feeling of being too clean can negatively affect their evaluation. Sometimes playing everything to a T, although very impressive, is still predictable and sometimes even boring. Knowing this, Ousuke makes sure that his perfect performance will be one that doesn't suffer from the other perfect performances that were deemed too boring. This concept was also explored earlier with Hokuto High School, where their ace would play everything perfectly to the point where even he was bored with the music. It is a concept that Amyuu acknowledges, and having Ousuke not fall victim to this common trap many others who chase perfections fall for reveals just how outstanding and dedicated he is in pursuing his ideal of perfection. The second chapter of Capriccio starts with Ousuke distorting the song, which stuns the entire crowd. They comment on just how much sensuality he's putting into the music and how this talent is something even Himisaka is incapable of doing. Meiryou continues playing, and some dialogue emphasizes just how great they are in an ensemble. At a leisurely tempo, as if it were a solo, we sing. When doing ensembles, since you have to focus on others so much, it can become flat compared to doing solos. And yet, then Meiryou continues pouring their heart out into their ensembles. Ousuke has been said many times to be good not only at doing solos, but to also be great at pulling out everyone's potential in an ensemble. As stated, ensembles usually sound flatter since you aren't paying too much attention to your own music and are mainly focused on the others, but Meiryou has mastered it to the point where their ensembles has far more sensuality to it than is normally seen. With how much work Ousuke is putting into this performance, we go back to the earlier scene and see Yachen ask Ousuke, "Don't you think you're working a bit too hard?" I think it has something to do with how worthless I am, but I don't believe you need to go as far as to think about the judges to such an extent. If you concern yourself with things like that, you become unable to purely enjoy music. We're relying on you even more than we usually do, so don't try to burden yourself even more. And before Yachan can finish, Ousuke says, "Thinking that far ahead is my music." Yachan, to tell you the truth, after hearing Tokise's performance, I was incredibly frustrated. Yachan asks if Tokise has really improved that much for Ousuke to be worrying like this, and Ousuke says yes. But more than that, compared to the type of music I had built myself upon, it was so different. It was dazzling. It was pure, honest, lacking any lie or pretense. As if they were exposing their very hearts on that stage. That sort of thing. It was the exact opposite of my music. Which is exactly why I cannot afford to lose. After learning about Ousuke's history, it makes sense why he would think this way about his music playstyle in comparison to Tokise's. After seeing Asano get bullied due to how other people viewed their relationship, Ousuke realized there were many things he didn't know about people and relationships, so he dedicated himself to learning and studying people's feelings and attitudes. Doing this helped him understand humans better and gave him directions on how to act in a way that will give him the most social success and protect his image as well as the image of his friends. However, behaving in a way that's very studied and systematic is the opposite of being pure and genuine to yourself. Tokise giving such an honest and heartfelt performance most likely made Ousuke jealous, since that is something he abandoned and lost as a child after getting bullied because of it. Instead of despairing about being unable to become like Tokise, Ousuke instead chooses to double down and try even harder to maximize his analytical playstyle. Doing this brought out the absolute best of the Meiryou team and led them to attain perfection. The third chapter of the song starts and Meiryou is continuing their fantastic performance. Many people in the audience commented on how versatile and rhythmic the song became, and Ousuke's musical playstyle started being highlighted even more than before. It says observe, research, study, understand, think, reflect, calculate, both sound and heart. Command it. The song reaches a new peak as it says, "This is the sound of Meiryou." As the song approaches its end, the Meiryou team starts giving a powerful and intense performance. As they are heading towards their last climax, it continues and says, "Come, go beyond perfection." The performance ends and Meiryou is met with an insane amount of cheers. It was clear that they won the hearts of the audience and were considered the current best performance in nationals. Ousuke looks over to Asano and she gives him one of her patented smiles. Ousuke says, "I'm sure this is different from pure enjoyment of music that Yachan was talking about. Even so, this is the sound, the answer I've come to." The performance wrapped up and Yachan says it was beyond perfect. At the beginning of the arc, He called the performance just perfect, but here he said beyond perfect, which implies that their performance here was definitely the best thing they have ever played, even considering their many practices. Susumin tells Ousuke that Ousuke won the bet of Meiryou being able to play at their absolute best and give the audience a perfect performance. It seems that many people in and out of Meiryou believe that their performance was the definition of perfect and flawless. Tsukaji starts to speak on Meiryou's performance and says, "Meiryou was so damn flawless, they really did it." Meiryou always had a problem where their performance sounded too prim and proper, which is why they could never win against Ichihe's prodigy. But without having a drastic change in their own style, they pushed their strengths to the very limit. The result, they splendidly overcame their own cleanliness. To be able to look at yourself this objectively and make these decisions is a very rarely seen talent. I am in awe. If last year's Meiryou performed as they did today, who knows what the final result would have been. Tsukaji has been following competitive Koto for a long time, and his analysis is almost always a great indicator on how things will go. He pointed out that Meiryou had the issue of being too clean and proper, which compared to the raw, prodigious talent of Ichihe's star, felt lackluster. We have seen Ousuke already plan ahead and avoid this scenario by distorting the sound in the second chapter. The sensuality he brought out shocked the crowd, and we can assume it gave the performance more depth than it had last year. Tsukaji said that if they played this well last year, there was a good chance they might have won it over the current champions, Ichihe. This statement alone validates so many things for the Meiryou team. They worked so hard after losing to Ichihe so many times with the goal of finally beating them, and we have opinions from Tsukaji confirming that he believes this current Meiryou is at the level of last year's Ichihe, the previous champion of the Nationals. This of course means that Meiryou's performance is at the level that it can win the Nationals over any team, and it also puts a lot of pressure on the remaining teams of the tournament. Going by what Tsukaji said, Ichihe is not guaranteed a win even if they played as well as they did last year to win the Nationals. The current Meiryou is now at the level that Ichihe will have to surpass what they did last year if they want to clearly win it over Meiryou and become champions again. This also means that other teams will have to also give performances comparable to Ichihe's winning championship performance last year if they want a chance to beat Meiryou and become the current champion. The bar is set extremely high, and we will have to wait and see if the other teams are ready to step up and give a championship worthy performance, or if they will crack under pressure set by Meiryou and crumble. Ousuke aimed for Meiryou to have a perfect performance so he can challenge Tokisei and Ichihe, and he achieved that goal with flying colors. Ousuke may have been jealous of Tokisei's honest and pure playstyle, but trusting in the foundation he has built throughout his life and playing his own style of Koto led Ousuke to make the Meiryou team worthy of being called potential champions. Tsukaji said what Ousuke has is a very rarely seen talent, and he is left in awe with how he was able to objectively look at the team and make the decisions he did to bring them to that level. As the star of the show and through his passion, dedication, and hard work, Ousuke finally achieved the goal he set for the Meiryou team and became the man who mastered perfection. With how amazing Meiryou performed at Nationals and how awesome it was witnessing the team overcome their limits and surpass all expectations, it is very easy to get excited about the future of this arc. Meiryou did a great job setting the bar on what a champion level performance should look like, and I would absolutely love it if the other teams can bring the same amount of pressure as Meiryou's perfect performance did. If you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Also subscribe to my Patreon, early access to videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.